right, good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming to the February 10th, 2025 revised the budget presentation for the fiscal year 2025-2026. We'll call this meeting to order at 5:58 p.m. We apologize for starting a little bit behind schedule. We were having some technical difficulties, but this evening, after this presentation, the Board of Ed is going to be voting and adopting the Board of Education budget. So where this currently stands and what I'm currently presenting is the superintendent's proposed budget. The Board of Education, we go through a process where the Finance and Operation Committee meets, then we meet together as board, then the superintendent and administrators present their budget to the board. The board comes up with a variety of questions. We have a workshop. We have time to go through it, ask questions, get answers, and now here we are. So the budget process started about a month ago. It started even longer with a Finance and Operation Committee meeting and even longer for the administrators as they prepare this. So I can't advance the screen. I guess I'm used to being at BHS where I have a computer. So the superintendent's goals for 2025-2026 the Board of Education supports. Thank you so much. I didn't even notice that. The first goal is to provide a quality education to all Berlin learners. The second is to prepare students for multiple options and opportunities. That's within the classroom and beyond that the school offers through extracurriculars, sports, internships, at all grades. The third goal is to maintain favorable class sizes and course offerings, and that's what the families in Berlin expect, and they know, and that has produced the results we've gotten. The fourth goal is consistent support of students, staff, and classroom technology. And the fifth goal is a commitment to a safe learning environment. And I think all of these goals encompass the budget that we are going to present and what we are asking for. The mission and core values, we empower our students to be enthusiastic, curious, and kind. Curious learners and kind, compassionate leaders in our community and the world, purpose, passion, and pride. And our beliefs about learning that all students learn when they feel safe, included, respected, and valued by their community. And the community goes beyond the school community. It's a greater Berlin community. We must believe in, challenge, and support all students to reach their personal goals and our high expectations, and maintaining that and continuing as students learn and progress through the K-12 public school system. The third belief about learning is it is enhanced by a cycle that includes goal setting, practice, feedback, and reflection. And finally, students are empowered and engaged by choice and authentic learning experiences. This is the Berlin vision of a graduate created by one of our students in Berlin Public Schools. And it shows collaborate, innovate, contribute, think, communicate, and learn. And all of this together drives our budget. It drives our discussion as a board. It drives the work that we do and the decisions that we make. The projected enrollment piece, this chart here for 2025-2026, it just shows that in the elementary level, there is no net change projected. At McGee, a decrease of 7, and nope. Yeah, net change, and then at BHS, 49. But, you know, that number can change because we do have new properties coming into town, and that is going to have an impact on our school district. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the superintendent's proposed budget that we will be voting on. The total request is $118,365, which is a 6.86% increase, and it's a $3.6 million difference over the previous year. If you look at the stacked bar graph, this is representative of our needs and what we cut. So if we do not get the 4.3%, we're not going to be able to fulfill anything above that. We'll be revisiting that, but the major drivers in this budget are the state mandated reading program, technology and equipment, staff accounts, materials and repairs, and maintenance costs. We really do not have a whole lot in this budget. There's contractual obligations and things that just need to be taken care of. Inflation is a huge aspect that has impacted our budget, and everyone probably has felt it at home as well. So, to provide some context, special education accounts for approximately a quarter of our total operating budget. Special education budget requests are $13.6 million, and the percent of our general budget fund is 24.3%. And with special education, there is no flexibility. There's, minimal options on how to reduce this part of our budget because we are mandated by legislation to fulfill the special education requirements. So this chart right here is the revised budget, the increase of 6.86%. And if you go through it, you can see the percent difference for administrative salaries, certified salaries, non-certified employee benefits, contracted services, utilities, transportation, tuition, supplies, textbooks, and materials, equipment, and all other expenditures, bringing us to the 6.86%. As I go through the next slides, you will see how, the key drivers of each. So for the administrators, this is an increase of $82,694. And the key drivers is there's a 3% increase for all administrators. So we had a lot of contract negotiations that came through this year. When you're doing negotiations with a union for all bargaining groups, you can try and give people less, but first off, I don't think that is what's right and best for the people who work tirelessly for Berlin Public Schools and for all our children who attend Berlin Public Schools, but also you can't settle lower than the state average. You'll go to mediation, arbitration, and it's gonna be very expensive. And I'm not gonna repeat that every time we talk about the increase for contractual obligations, but you'll see that throughout. There's a new annuity structure which drives this increase, additional vacation buyout days, and salary adjustments for under budgeted accounts for fiscal year 25. As you can see to the chart, we have reduced our administrators. We brought it down really low in 2020, 2021 based on the feedback, from the community. But at this point, it is really challenging to operate on such a small administrative staff. It puts a lot on the administrators, and it's not always what's best for the operation of the district. And we brought the lead teachers from each school as deans, and that was the shift. So then that is accounted for in here, and that's why you see from the yellow, the 2022 to 2023, to the orange, the 24 to 25, that jump. Certified staff increase, this is 4.37% of the ask. So the contractual obligation is a 3% increase. We have 99 teachers advancing in the STEP, so the way the STEP structure is, you can look it up online if you're interested, but based, on years of experience, they move throughout the contract. They move down based on years, to the right based on education, and then, it has to be accounted for. And that is all worked out through contractual negotiations. And teachers that work summer school, so that's in here. You can see how many certified teachers and staff we have in the district, and you can see that this number has continually gone down from 21, 22. Non-certified staff salaries, so we had an athletic trainer that we were paying an agency for, and then we brought them on to staff. It was recently in the news that athletic trainers are a shortage area at this point. They weren't even making a living wage. You could probably work at Costco for $30 an hour and make more than an athletic trainer that requires a degree in credentialing. So we brought them over because they're really hard to get. Districts throughout the state are losing them, and we actually made that choice before that was in the news. So I think that was a really great choice of the board to bring the athletic trainer on to staff, because this is a shortage area due to the pay. Increase to the per diem substitute line. Our substitutes were making what they were making probably 20 years ago, and the cost of living was not reflective of it. They're very underpaid, and as a result, when you're not paying people adequately or appropriately, you can't find people to fill those jobs. And then custodial overtime is accounted for. So our non-certified staff include paras, clerical, custodians, OT, PT, tutors, IT, per diem subs, and the athletic trainer. The employee benefit increase, that is 8.51%. And the key drivers, the increase for health insurance is budgeted at 10%. That number comes to us as a board. We don't get to set that, or, you know, we don't have any wiggle room when it comes to the insurance rate. We just have to put it in and, you know, hope it's not too bad. But across districts who have similar insurance, everyone is looking at around the same number. And then staff course reimbursement, we reimburse graduate level courses for staff under certain parameters within their contract. And that falls under the employee benefits. So the employee benefits include health insurance, Social Security and Medicare, pension, life insurance, retirement incentives, unemployment, annuity benefits, and staff course reimbursement. Our contracted services, the key drivers in this for the 12.97% increase is software subscription services, special education professional services, and professional development. When you're looking at the software subscriptions, you're talking PowerSchool, for instance. So that is something that the school needs to run on. There are other programs out there, but switching over to another platform just because, you know, it may be increasing, that's not what's going to be best for the entire school community. It's going to have major constraints. So it's not something that you can just shop around on. The special ed professional services, you know, these are contracted services that have to happen. And professional development for teachers is in fact a necessity, because if the faculty and staff do not continue to learn and grow, then they are not going to be able to provide the quality education that parents expect. So we have operational and educational systems, professional services like ESS at the high school, legal services, which, you know, we absolutely have to pay for our legal services, transportation for athletics, and professional development. Utilities increase. The key drivers is Connecticut Natural Gas and water and sewer. And the utilities in our budget include electricity, which is for the Central Connecticut Transition Academy, which is over by Kensington Pizza. So we pay the electricity for that. Natural gas, waste management, telephone services, water and sewer, and web maintenance. So that's a 1.58% increase of $7,808. Now we have transportation increase of $132,251, which is 3.84%. These key drivers are contractual increase of 3%. So as you know, we're seeing consistent throughout is the contractual obligations. Fuel, vehicle maintenance and repair, and increase in tech school runs. And that was something that was brought forth with the board of the busing and the times that they have to go and all of that. So we have no choice but to absorb those costs because we have to pay for students who choose to go to tech schools. The public school transportation, in-town regular education, these are the items that this budget line includes. The special education transportation in and out of town, that is the budgeted minus the excess cost. Private school transportation, tech and vocational schools, fuel and repair maintenance, like we talked about. Tuition increase. So this tuition increase includes the special education outplacements for public and private, increase for independent studies, and adjustment for magnet and vocational school tuition. And again, like we've talked about, when we're talking about special education outplacement, we can't just say, oh, we're going to keep the student in Berlin Public Schools. There's a whole process that this follows. So if the tuition increases, what happens? If the tuition increases, we just have to pay it, and same with, tech schools. The increase for independent studies, this is in line with preparing students to become, providing students with multiple options and opportunities in the learning environment. So our key drivers of our 3% Our key drivers, 3% increase for special ed outplacements, 1 unanticipated special education outplacement, and then the CNA program tuition. So we have an excellent CNA program at the high school that's very popular. Students are in that program. They're learning all about how to become a CNA and receiving appropriate credentialing so they can then go out and enter the workforce, becoming a CNA, and then they can, expand their knowledge in the healthcare field or stay there or gain experience. So I know that the slides are going to be coming up shortly. Is it going to be a second, Nick, or do you have to reboot? Okay. So while he pulls it back up, I'm just going to talk about the supplies, textbooks, and materials of $341,001. And then when it comes up, hopefully, I'll still be talking about it. So we have a state-mandated reading program that has been mandated by the state. We have to purchase it, so that is in there. There's an increase for custodial supplies and materials and administrative supplies. Some of the supplies do include all educational and non-educational supplies. That's from pencils to toilet paper and everything in between that we need to make sure the school runs. Textbooks, consumable workbooks, athletic supplies, and graduation supplies. And when you look at all those things and then look at the $341,000, that's really not all that much. The driver behind this had a lot to do with, the 3 key drivers I had mentioned. So I'm going to just keep going because I know there were printed copies, and I know that, everyone wants, you're so interested, you just don't want me to stop. Equipment increase, so now we're going to talk about the equipment line, and there is an increase of $439,124. And the key drivers are classroom technology. These are projectors, Chromebooks, iPads, laptops, other computers, servers, etc. We have our one-to-one technology for students. Then we have our infrastructure hardware. And the technology components are necessary for our school district to function, in the day and age we are living in. Athletic equipment and operations equipment. So our athletic equipment, all the sports we offer and the equipment that's necessary. And operations, those are phone replacements, shelving, custodial equipment. And now we are on all other expenditures, which is an increase of $61,903. The key drivers are fee increases for professional organizations, and just like subscriptions, everything is increasing. The cost of everything is just increasing, and then the local school district there's a trickle-down effect where we have to absorb it. Fees in athletics and minor building improvements. So the professional organization is CABE, CASBO, SIP, etc. Athletic tournament fees, wrestling, track, swimming. And again, if we're not covering the tournament fees, it's getting put back on families and communities. That's not what they expect. That has not been the norm. So but this is such a small number in our overall budget. And then just minor building improvements, safety, and department reorganizations. And then Armed Security Department increase of $24,671. New weapons, new service weapons, so new weapons for the armed security, and a 3% wage increase, as we've talked about. There we go. This chart right here shows the Security Department budget of $436,809. And you can see fiscal year 23-24, 24-25, 25-26, the dollar difference and the percent difference. The Security Department budget is funded by the town and is not included in the superintendent's budget request. So as I go through, just quickly to talk about state funding has decreased, and you can see that represented in this chart, as well as federal funding has significantly decreased. And that has an impact on our local community. We have to absorb that cost within our budget. Because just because the state and the federal funding are decreasing doesn't mean our costs are decreasing or we no longer need certain services. We've had a decrease in open choice enrollment, and that is across the whole choice program. That is not specific to Berlin Public Schools, but the choice grant that we rely on, you can see, so when we have a decrease in choice students attending Berlin Public Schools, they're Berlin Public School students, but we have a reimbursement that we receive when they come, and the money that we receive from the choice grant is represented here. Non-certified salaries, certified salaries, and ESS at McGee. So the anticipated revenue for fiscal year is $675,600. And our excess cost reimbursements, the reimbursement is variable and by the number of students, costs who qualify for excess costs. There is some legislation potentially going through this legislative session that would change it. There really isn't too much information right now if it's going to be to our benefit or not. So for the meantime, this just, it's worth mentioning. This chart right here shows our 10-year budget funding history. So the historical data from 2016-17 on the left all the way to the right shows what we've asked for, what we've received. We've had to make cuts each year, but we've been able to maintain and, receive adequate funding to continue to provide students with an excellent education. There are certainly places that we should have more money allocated towards, but without the funding, we can't. One example, we do not have an assistant superintendent. So the administration, we are not administrative top heavy in this district, but a lot of them now have additional work in comparison to other districts when they are all receiving similar pay increases and similar salaries. So, we want to make sure that Berlin remains a favorable district for staff and faculty to work in and want to be here. So, we've been able to make do, but, we want to, we're also accounting for inflation. The red line shows operational, the blue shows the superintendent's request. And in the packet, you can look closely at neighboring districts' adopted budget comparisons. And these are just 6 districts and Berlin, and you can see what their adopted was each year and their 5-year increase. So Newington is on the top, Berlin is on the bottom, and they go in order from, greatest to least for 2024-2025. So you can see that Newington's adopted budget was 5.95, Cromwell's was 5.88, Weathersfield was 4.97, Farmington was 4.75, Rocky Hill 3.62, Glastonbury 3.5, and Berlin received 3.21. And I do want to say that, Ashley and Brian and the staff that works with them. They've done an excellent job at really carefully going through the budget and making budgetary decisions on, you know, certain things throughout the year, so we can make do with that number. They've done a very good job at making sure we make do with that, but you can see here that this number is the lowest. This is in the DERG, so DERG is representative of, you know, similar towns, and did I skip one? Yeah, hang on, it's not working now. Okay, it's not letting me do the slide. Okay, so I had to skip the fiscal year 25 budget percent increase. It just keeps skipping over it. And here is another DERG-D and state comparison. So you can see what the state average is and then the per pupil expenditure. Berlin's net current expenditure is $21,719, and the state's average is $22,836. So you can see we are below the state average. And just to highlight some student achievement and recognition. So we've talked about how well, you know, how through our funding we have been able to achieve a lot, provide our students with opportunities and options. You can see for ELA, we are in the top half more than for ELA, that's English Language Arts, and then we are top 5 for math. So I think these results are reflective of the excellent school district we have, but with additional cuts to our budget, you know, we're not going to be able to have favorable class sizes. We're not going to be able to have, you know, people coming to work who want to work here if they're not, you know, supported or feeling invested. Our NGSS, that is the science standards in 11th grade. This is really exciting to report. We are number 4 in our DERG. So that data right there shows how hard our teachers are working, and you know, we need to make sure we continue to receive adequate funding and maintain an excellent school system. This is the student achievement report for the SATs. So again, we are doing well, and we are in the top half of our DERG for reading and math. And then just some recognitions that we have received. You know, we received the Broadcast Award for what Nick Smith and his crew do. Students are being provided with opportunities to learn and develop skills. And those are the options and opportunities. All of this is. DECA has had a very successful year. We have the National Merit Scholarship Program, National Honor Society. We were best in U.S. News, Halo Award 2024, so on and so forth. There's a lot of other great things to celebrate, but these are all the options and opportunities that are available to students and that staff want to engage students in because they are supported. So, you know, all of these things, our entire budget drives the success of our district. People move to our town because they know we have an excellent school system and we are providing options and opportunities, and all of this stuff doesn't come at no cost. So I'm going to just turn it over to questions and comments. I will invite the superintendent to come up and answer questions if anyone in the audience has any questions that they would like to ask. Okay, so does not appear that there are any questions. So it is currently 6:27. We will go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and we will begin our next meeting shortly. Thank you. All right, good evening. It is 6:36 p.m. and we're going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the February 10th, 2025 meeting of the Berlin Board of Education. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
This to the right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we get to start this meeting with a student presentation. Very excited that tonight's presentation is called A Snapshot of Career Technology Education, CTE at Berlin High School. It is also CTE month, the month of February, which celebrates the importance and achievements of career and technical education. So I think this is very appropriate that we have CTE here with us tonight, and we are excited to see what you guys have to share because the setup looks awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to Principal Amenta. No, we're going to go live.
Hello, good evening, everyone. We are very excited to have our team here from our Career Technology Education Department. In just a moment, I'm going to call these fine students and staff up to the stage, but what you can't see just yet behind you is they have put together 3 stations. So a focus of our student presentations at board meeting has really been intended to be interactive. And so when thinking about all of the things going on at Berlin High School that we could showcase, we've had some really, really good work going on in the CTE department. We are in the crux of rebranding and offering new courses next year, and in lieu of that, we want to make sure that we are showing off some of that good stuff. So, first thing I'd like to do is call up Mr. Ross Hansen. He is our department supervisor, along with Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Fortuna. They're going to call up our student team, who in just a moment are going to teach all of our board members a little bit of what they're learning in our CTE department.
All right, thank you. My name is Sebastian Fortuna. I'm one of the technology education teachers here at Berlin High School. And I'll introduce my team of students. So we have Michael Avino, Mia Betty, Cal Kemp, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, Ryan Scaranuzzo, Theo Wolski, Adrian, I always mess up your last name, I don't want to do that again, and then Makayo as well. So this is what we're building towards, and to kind of sum up what we're doing, we're building a department that best represents our current skills and fits growth for future expansion. We want to use our state-of-the-art facilities. We have an amazing building that many schools across the state dream of. And we want to basically use that to its fullest potential. And then we're focusing on industries and skills applicable to local, state, national, and global economies. So this is a snapshot of kind of what we do and some of the projects that we have our students work on. And this is what you'll see today. So Station 1 is the larger arcade cabinet that you see up on stage. So our advanced woodcraft students created an arcade cabinet. Mia was one of the students who worked on this. They made everything from designing the arcade cabinet to programming the buttons, and it's really amazing what they pulled off. And then Station 2, which is the red table over there, will show how BHS students are utilizing 3D printing and CNC routers to make some amazing creations. Station 3 is our multimedia setup. So Theo produced their own news story on Walter, who we all love. And it'll actually be submitted for Fox 61, so hopefully it'll make air. Okay, now I'm going to bring it up to the students.
Just jump in. So a couple things I just want to point out before we head up to the stage, and I'm not sure if we're able to lift that screen or not. little different not working on your home base, but nevertheless, we would like to point out that the arcade that you see there before you was a refurbished former COVID tower. Okay, so that was actually, before refurbished, a tower that was used in the classroom for a camera so students could interact from home when we were hybrid. So you perhaps will have an opportunity if we lift the motherboard. When they brought it in full P, it was just about done. I would say 80% done when they brought me down to check it out. I couldn't believe that we had repurposed that. So just kind of keep that in the back of mind, very creative. As far as what's happening over to the right of the stage with the CNC routers and all that, there's also some tokens and gifts the students have created, because in real time to print takes a little bit longer than this 20-minute presentation. So they're going to give you a quick walkthrough of that. And then certainly Theo will walk through the presentation and production process on how students get on air. So I also want to point out that Theo is working. You know, she came up from the back of the auditorium to help support this presentation. So at this time, I think what we'll do we want to break up into groups of 3? Okay. So we're going to split the board into groups of 3, so 3 at per station. So what we'll probably do is start.
Brian doesn't get to go. I like this. I'm going to drive you nuts with this.
I think it's cool. Switch.
I know. Will 3D prints everything.
Does he?
Yeah, he had his
That's yours.
his 3D printer is like worth thousands of dollars. Like,
So as everyone's making their way back, I
Thank
want
you.
to first of all say thank you to our students. But as we draw parallel between what you just saw, I asked a couple of the students to come down and talk about the connection between what they were doing there in their station and where they project their future career paths. So they're going to share that right now.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little quick thing that I think the tech ed department's going in a great place. I think it's made amazing improvements over my 4 years in the high school. But just in general with the tech ed department, also my experience as part of the robotics team at the high school, like I plan to go on to robotics engineering at a few colleges. So I could definitely say this is connected immensely with what I hope to do. And it's definitely inspired me to pursue STEM in general.
I'm Michael Levino. I am looking to go into robotics engineering at Wentworth, most likely, and stuff like this just kind of sparks my passion of bringing programming and physical objects into real life and seeing what machines can do while we are just watching them. It's fascinating to me.
Thank you both for sharing that. I think and I hope that one of the takeaways you have after seeing all this tonight is that the tech ed program at the high school is just being completely modernized to keep up with all the new things in technology. And really the reason this is happening is because of Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Fortuna. And they have just done an absolutely phenomenal job with this. They have a great vision. And actually this year they actually really revamped in our program of studies our complete programming. So I just want to thank them because they're just doing a phenomenal job. Thanks.
So before we finish up, are there any questions? I think the students did a really nice job answering all the questions up on stage. Are there any other questions? I know we didn't have everybody up there on stage. Jess.
Towards their college at all?
So,
If they choose that path?
so do you want to speak to that?
Last year I took a class called Wooden Manufacturing 2. That's where I learned all of the CNC stuff that I was presenting on tonight. I took one of the old CNC machines out of the closet, which had never been used before. We had no idea how to use it, and from there I learned how to program the CNC and actually get it to cut what we want it to do. That is very valuable going into college, knowing that I'm going to be working on CNCs and programming and building things. All of that is definitely something that colleges look for, having that experience and going in, having that want to build, having that want to create is at least something for where I'm looking at. In engineering college, they want to see those students that have that experience, and that's huge for students going into either the engineering field or anything related with STEM.
Awesome.
If I could add really quickly, our CCP CAD program is a partnership through Tunxus, and so students do earn college credit for that course. And then all the other courses, even if they're not college credit, we are trying to add in certifications, so students would take a test and actually get certification in each area, and we're going to try to do that for as many courses as possible.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think that's really great that the CAD is through Tungsys. I actually didn't even know that, but that is a class that a lot of people, like even adults, want to take, and they, so it's even if students aren't going for that, they now have a skill that they can apply for the rest of their lives. That's awesome.
CAD is huge in manufacturing.
I also just want to share out, thank you so much to the students and the teachers who were up there tonight and made this all happen. I know it was a lot of work. Everything I saw was impressive. I love our new name tags, so if you guys want to replace yours tonight with those. And I like this little clicker. I'm just going to drive over nuts with it. But you guys are doing really great things, and your teachers are awesome for coming up with really innovative, creative ways to get you guys engaged in learning. So, well done.
Thank you.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
All right, so that's a tough act to follow. The students were awesome. It's one of our favorite parts of every meeting is seeing what the students have to share out with us and the learning that's occurring. I'm going to move on to our next part of our agenda, the report of board members. Do any board members have anything that they would like to share out, anything that they've attended or been involved in, or anything they would like to share?
I'll try. Sorry, as I'm losing my voice, you might not hear it. But I just wanted to say that I attended the Global Play Day at my kids' elementary school. I was in the kindergarten classroom. It was just amazing to see the kids all lit up with the stuff that they got to bring from home, and they got to share and be able to collaborate and learn new things with the toys that were brought in. And, I was really impressed that it was just great. It was great to see, and especially with the younger kids. Even my third grader, said we had to do a little work. And I was like, I think you were playing more than you thought you were. But yeah, Global Play Day was definitely a hit.
Anyone else have anything that they would like to share?
Upcoming, we have the Wizard of Oz at the high school, but it is a collaboration with both the middle school and the high school theater programs, which is great. And the students have been working really hard. The community has been amazing in helping to support that financially too. So that's another real positive of the joint effort too. So it is February 28th, Friday night at 7, and I'm probably stealing your thunder if that's on your list. But Friday at 7, Saturday there is a 1 o'clock and 7, and Sunday at 1. And tickets are on sale. Get them while they're.
Thank you, Jen, for that. Anyone else? Okay, well, we are going to turn it over to our student representatives to share another highlight of our meeting, hearing what the students at BHS are up to.
Well, our presentation is not as exciting as that we just had, getting to play arcade games and such, but we did have some exciting stuff happen at the high school. So starting off, this past Friday, the BHS mock trial team competed in the second round at the New Britain Courthouse. The club is cementing its reputation as one of the best mock trial teams in the state by advancing to the Elite Eight for the second time in the program's 3-year history. The team will compete in the Elite Eight in early March as they continue the pursuit of a state title.
Next, Upbeat and Berlin First Robotics are once again joining forces to host a pizza tasting event on the evening of Wednesday, March 19 at Berlin High School. This event brings the community together to enjoy great food while supporting 2 of the school's most impactful programs.
On March 12th, from 8:30 to 11 a.m., BHS will be hosting a career exploration fair for students. This is a key opportunity for students to engage in career conversations with professionals from a variety of fields.
Finally, tomorrow, February 11th, BHS's HOSA Future Health Professionals chapter will be hosting a Vitals Lab. This is an opportunity for students interested in the healthcare field to gain hands-on experience with a critical skill that they will likely use in their professions. And that is all that we have for tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for our student reps? Okay. We're going to move on to committee reports. I don't believe the curriculum committee has met since the last one, right? No? But on January 30th, we had an ad hoc committee. On January 31st, we had the F&O, and on February 5th, we had the community engagement. So does someone want, Brian or Peter, would you like to share out about the ad hoc committee on January 30th?
Go ahead.
Not all at once.
There was six new policies, first reading. So based on our policy, we had to have an ad hoc committee first. It really updates to current policies to align with current legislation. So it really was a brief meeting. There wasn't much discussion. Everyone that was at the meeting concurred that these should move forward without much discussion.
Thank you. Peter, would you like to share about the F&O meeting on January 31st?
Yeah, we just discussed the upcoming budget, so I don't have much to report. So that's why we're here today.
Thank you. And then on February 5th, the Community Engagement Committee, we met to discuss the winter snapshot, and that will be, we're meeting again this Wednesday to review the final product, and then we'll be sharing it with the board, and then we'll send it out to the greater school community. So that was our meeting last week, and we have another one this week. Do we have any correspondence to the board?
Yes, we do. First correspondence, Berlin Board of Education and staff, thank you for the beautiful orchid plant you sent during this difficult time. My dad was a gardener and had a green thumb. I hope you carry on the legacy. Sincerely, Sue McNally. Sue works at the Board of Ed in the Special Ed Department. Dear Berlin Board of Education and staff, I just wanted to thank you for the lovely dish garden that you sent me for the recent passing of my dad. It was very kind of you and meant so much to know that your thoughts and prayers are with me during this very difficult time. Lisa Cornella, and she's a para at Willard, also the president of the para union. I also have 2 emails I'd like to share. I know I was discussed and was asked to send a letter out to parents last week. I got an email from 2 parents. Good evening. Tonight, I'm grateful for our family came to Berlin for keeping our children safe and every family included. Thank you all. Best wishes, Kelly Hall. The second email, Mr. Manigny, Board of Education, I give you a lot of credit. This is unreal you have to deal with this time. I feel for you. Angela Tordonata, another parent. This is after the letter that went home to parents regarding ICE and our procedures that we would use to keep students safe. And I have one more that I'd like to share with the board. In Money Inc., Berlin Public High School was ranked in the top 30 high schools in the state of Connecticut. It was ranked 26th out of 30 with various high schools from around the state. The predominance of high schools came from Fairfield County and towards Greenwich and so on. But that's a credit to the work that's been done at the high school with Mrs. Amenta, but also before Mrs. Amenta with Eileen Eustace and the changes that have been taking place in the high school. And you saw part of that this evening, so congratulations to the high school on that.
Nice work. Thank you. Audience and citizens, if anyone in the audience would like to approach the board, you have 3 minutes to do so. Just state your name and your residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Hearing none. Move on. Consent agenda. So the consent agenda has been included in Schoology, and expecting everyone has already reviewed it. Do we have a motion for consideration?
To approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Peter, who is second? Second by Jen, okay, sorry. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Did Vanessa vote? Aye, okay, just wanted to make sure. Opposed, the vote carries 9-0. And now we are going to turn it over to Director of Finance and Operations, Ashley Dorsey, to provide a report.
Just real quickly before Ashley starts, I just want to preface, I know you receive a weekly update and some of the discussions about the various things going on in facilities. I think it's important that Ashley is given an opportunity to explain. We're spending a great deal of time working with the town on the various different projects that are potential projects moving forward. Thank you, Ashley.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to start with the HVAC projects over at the elementary schools. So the bid packages for the upcoming HVAC projects over at Griswold and Hubbard Elementary Schools are still in progress. There are still concerns regarding the YMCA daycare facility at Hubbard Elementary School. The initial feedback from the state, which I had reported back in the last meeting, that one of the areas that we could potentially move the YMCA daycare to is over to the high school, but there may be some impact on the reimbursement from the BHS closeout. So our initial feedback from the state is that if we were to modify that existing space over at BHS, that we would potentially have an impact on the full reimbursement for the BHS closeout. Brian and I agree that we don't want to do that at all. We want to make sure that the town gets the maximum reimbursement. So we identified 2 other areas, one classroom over at Willard Elementary School, and then a commercial property over on Farmington Avenue. Both of these alternative locations will require modifications, and these modifications are needed for the licensing for the state of Connecticut for the Y to operate their daycare, and these modifications have to be at no cost to the YMCA. So a cost analysis is being done right now to determine which would be the most cost-effective solution, either modifications to Willard or the rental property on Farmington Avenue, or keeping the daycare over at Hubbard. The BOE received approximately $3.2 million in grant funding to offset the cost of these HVAC projects. The grant expires this December 31st, 2025. The superintendent and I have been having multiple conversations just reminding people of the deadline. We are concerned considering that the bids are not yet out. There is an opportunity to apply for a grant extension, but at this time, Department of Administrative Services is only offering a 1-year extension. So we continue to update you on these projects as we move forward. The functional testing over at Willard Elementary School of the unit ventilators and the fan coil units are still continuing. They are scheduled to do more functional testing on Friday, February 14th. And the commissioning of the chiller units are still planned for the springtime. The issues regarding the BHS floor tiles remain a growing concern. A walkthrough with members of the PBC, which is the Public Building Commission, members of the town and board staff, and a contracted engineer was held on Friday, January 17th to review the condition of the existing tiles. The engineering firm returned to BHS on Friday, January 24th to remove tiles for sampling. They're testing the tiles to confirm what exactly the substance is and how best to address it moving forward. We have not yet received a copy of the report. It's not available yet. As soon as it becomes available, we will report that back to you. The statement of need for the BHS track, the Biscoglio track, was approved by the town council and referred to the PBC on Tuesday, February 4th. Some good news, $207,750 of LoCIP funding was allocated to replace the playground over at Willard Elementary School. This project is planned to be completed over the summer. And the RFP for the architectural services for the McGee Science Labs will be published tomorrow, February 11th. The BOE has the renovation of the 5 labs in the 6th and 7th grade wings as a priority project for the capital plan. The current labs are from the original 1968 construction and are in need of a major renovation. That's what I have. Any questions?
Started by then or completed by then?
So the initial grant application says it needs to be completed by then. When we applied for the grant, we knew that would pose a timeline problem because several districts within the state are applying for the same grant. There's only a limitation. There's only so many contractors that do this kind of work. The manufacturing of the equipment itself is about 12 months, so everybody applied assuming there would be a grant extension. We need to have a definitive timeline that should happen once we get the bids out. The construction firm will come back to us, give us an estimated timeline. Once we have that, we could apply for the grant extension.
Any questions?
Anything else?
No questions down there? Ashley, thank you for the update and the report. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent to report on the current numbers of open choice and present a recommendation to the board for the 2025-2026 school year.
Thank you. At this time, At the end of the school year, we'll have 83 choice students in the district, which would leave us at about 3.2%. I'm looking to stay at least 3%. 3% allows us to have a $6,000 credit per student. So my recommendation is that we look for 10 seats at the K level, at the kindergarten level. That would be essentially one student in each classroom, not putting the numbers up, not knowing what our K numbers will be like with the law change allowing fourth graders to enter if they are qualified, and with the new housing, I wouldn't want to go more than 10. And that would give us, if all the students stayed and no siblings, that would put us at 3.6% for next year. If we have all 83 stay next year that are projected, that are currently, which is not the case typically, and we added 10, which we don't always add at what we offer, we would be at 93 or 3.6%.
So before we go into discussion, we need a motion for consideration in a second, then we can open it up for discussion. Do we have a motion for consideration?
Move to approve the superintendent's recommendation regarding the level of participation in the open choice program for the 25-26 school year as presented, 10 kindergarten seats.
Do we have a second? So the motion by Peter, second by Jessica. Any discussion on this? Thank you for the update and providing us with that information. Okay, hearing no discussion. Do you have anything? Anyone down there? Yeah? Just make sure you talk into the microphone. It's hard to hear everyone.
Because the numbers are low, you want to bring in 10 more seats? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm concerned with is if we opted to say only take 5 seats or no seats, we'd be at 3.2%. That means if we reduce by 5 with more students, we could be below the 3%, which would impact our budget greatly, because of those 80 students, we would lose $2,000 per student.
So when it goes below the 3%, what is the reimbursement?
When it goes to 2%, it goes to $4,000 versus
$4,000,
$6,000.
okay.
So if you're talking
Okay.
80 students, you're
Right,
talking
yes.
$160,000. So
Yeah.
the thought is 10 students, which would be 1 K student per classroom, would not push our numbers up if all the students, if we do have 10 students that opt to come to Berlin.
Right.
The other piece is we usually let siblings come, but we could lose students from the 83. So the idea of being at 3.6 seems reasonable, given that others might opt not to come that are currently in
Right.
the district.
Thank you.
Do we know of any current families that have younger siblings? So like we know that they might come? Like do we have like, first, second graders that have like younger siblings? Just curious.
We wouldn't know that.
Oh, okay.
We wouldn't know that data, no. And typically, sometimes we have K students that come, and their siblings are in other schools in Hartford, and then once their K students have a positive experience, then the following year they opt to bring their 5th or 6th or 7th grader, and we allow that. So we, if a family is in the choice program, we would allow their siblings to be in the program also in Berlin.
And we found success with that, I think, over the years as you report this out, because they're Berlin, they're Berlin students, they're Berlin families, they want their kids to come here. I mean, we found more success bringing the kids in as siblings at various points rather than just accepting all students at various points. And I think that was a change that was made a number of years back. And it's, improved, the students' experience. Any other discussion? Okay, we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. And then Vanessa, are you voting on this one? Aye. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Opposed? The vote carries 9-0. Moving on to the first reading of the policy review and revision. They've all been posted in school. The G. Shipman and Goodwin has recommended the revisions to these policies based on regulatory or statutory changes or citation updates and best practices. And as we talked about, the ad hoc committee met on January 30th to review these proposed revisions. No action is required on the first reading, and at our next meeting, that during the second reading is the adoption. Would you like to share anything about any of these policies or anyone that was at the ad hoc?
All I can say is they're updates based on legislation or best practices that Shipman's recommending. They're not large changes. I don't know if Peter wants to add anything.
Yeah, the modifications are pretty minimal to the policies, so it's fairly cut and dry. You know, just give it another read, but no major changes.
Okay, so no action. Does anyone have anything they want to ask or discuss on this before we move on? Okay. Before our next meeting, if you do have anything, you know, you can always reach out to Brian and myself, and we can make sure we get the answers to everyone. And now we are going to review and adopt a budget. So this evening when we presented, you may have noticed, and I was waiting intentionally to go over this with the board during our meeting because it's board business, whereas the presentation was just delivering the presentation. So you may have noticed that this number is revised and slightly decreased from the previous one, and that has to do with the science of reading. I'm going to turn it over to Brian and talk a little bit about that. So when the budget came forth, it was a 7.4, yeah, and that was reflected in the slides, but then I reported out it was a little bit less. So we came in at the 6.86. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Originally, the reading program, we initially thought that it would be $500,000 to implement the new reading program. With the work that Lori made with the company that we chose, she finalized the prices last week. So in finalizing the price for the program, she used grant funds that were allocated for the reading program by the state. She also used some textbook funds for the 24-25 school year that we use now, and then brought the price down. So instead of $500,000, we're looking at about $360-some odd thousand for the entire program. So the thought is, it's my budget until it becomes your budget tonight. So the thought is to move forward when you're adopting a budget to know that we have a reduction. So the 7.4 became 6.8 with that reduction from 500,000 to 360. But the implications on the 25-26 budget are a little over 200,000. You can find that in the stacked bar graph. Yes, the program is actually 360,000 to implement, maybe a little more, but because of using textbook money and grant funding, it's 200-some odd thousand for next year's budget. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? So yeah, you can see, you know, where it was almost a full %, it's now only 0.4% of the entire budget, $215,000. It's the orange part on the stack bar. That's what's needs to be expended in the 25-26 budget to fully implement the program. That's only implementing the program K-3. So it's not implementing it beyond that, and that's what the state requires.
Only K-3. Thank you, Lori, for working up that price, and, you know, I think it was, you know, important that it's reflected here, and I think, you know, as a board, it's, you know, questions are asked or discussed if there are any. Before we get into the discussion portion, if you have questions specific to the reduction, the science of reading, or anything else as it pertains to, we'll wait for the discussion. But do we have a motion for consideration?
Adopt the Board of Education operating budget for 2025 to 2026 in the amount of $56,118,365.
Do we have a second? Second. So the motion by Peter, the second by Brian. I'm going to open it up for discussion, and if you have questions about the new reduction or anything, comments, go ahead and, you know, share.
My only comments are, you know, I think this is a fair budget request. It has encompassed all of what our administrators have put together, with no real extras. It's what we need to keep our programs where they are, and to continue to have best in class of our school system.
Thank you, Jen. I think Brian, Ashley, and their team have worked really hard on putting this together. It's not easy coming together and putting together a really tight budget when you have to consider all the contractual obligations, the increase to insurance, and then all the other needs of the students in our district and school community. So thank you for that. I know that since October, this has been a stressor, and it's been something that has just really carried a lot of weight. So thank you. And I personally think that, you know, this budget is appropriate, adequate, and will continue to drive the school district forward the way that everyone expects and relies on. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say is looking at, and Jen brought this to my attention, looking at the one graph that looks at what the actual budget, approved budget is, and then what the superintendent's request, that number is still at 7.4. Our thought is that when you decide what the number will be tonight, what we post online and what goes out to the public is your budget, so that'll be adjusted. So we put 7.4 when we thought the reading program was 500,000. Now we're at 6.86. So whatever number that you decide, if you vote to 6.86, fine, that's the number that we'll have on that graph. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It'll be consistent throughout the document, and we'll post this document online so the public can see it.
You can try. You can do it.
I'll try. As a visual, I put the number in just because that's just how my brain works, you know, with the 6.86. But I did just because the reading program is something one-time deal. Thank you so much for wheeling and dealing to do what you can and finding the monies, you know, elsewhere. Yeah. I know it's been a headache since day one, so I just want to, you know that you appreciate the work that you did. But with that being said, I just kind of took the number of the reading program out, which brought it to 6.45, and I was just comparing that to what was asked for last year, which was the 6.39. And last year I did say, it's a very high number, and this graph I think is a good visual, and I know the discussion keeps coming up every time, what the Board of Ed asks for versus what the Board of Ed gets. And I'm not saying this is not, I guess, the opinion of most, and I got really ridiculed last year because of this, but the programs that we have are phenomenal. We have some, I'm going to use the word luxuries here, which are fantastic, and I definitely would want them to keep, because that's obviously what's getting these new teachers like we saw today to come. I also think it's just, you know, as a part of our job as a board too, it's okay to ask questions, and we want the money to be used and allocated in the appropriate ways. And 100%, the personnel, the people that are closest to our kids are the most important. So I understand some of the driving factors, especially with the freezes and supplies, have been, and there was a freeze last year, you know, in playing, like you said, kind of almost like a catch-up. So that is all.
Thank you.
Glad I got that out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Make sure you're just talking to the microphone so people, everyone. Yep.
I know there was talk about asking the town for money for the reading program. Do we know what the deciding factor is if we ask them or if we don't ask them?
I think at this point, we keep it in our budget and then we move forward. And then if next year there's no additional cost with the science of reading, then it will be reflected. But I think at this point, this is just our operational budget, and we move forward with that. Brian, I don't know what your thoughts are.
So I did speak to the mayor about this. I did ask him about funding it, and he said they'd think about it. But they know what that number is. It's $215,000 impact to this budget. So if they were to say, we'll fund it outside as a one-time, don't put it in your budget, just we'll write you a check for it, then we could lower the budget by that amount. And that's really like a 0.4%, if you look at the stack bar. So we'd go from 6.86 to 6.4. And that's what Melissa was saying, that if you take that out, you're right, last year we were at 6.39 was the ask. So we're not much different from where we were, and we know that 4.4% is staffing and benefits. So if you think about the budget, there's 2% for any inflation, any contractual obligations, we're talking 2% increase overall.
I just think it's, at this point, it is risky to just reduce the number to that without having any type of guarantee. So, you know, we knew Brian was having that conversation, and I think it's great that that occurred, but I think we just need to move forward with what our budget is. And if there's been times where we, you know, in past years, we found out that we were having a reduction with insurance, so we reduced the board's budget. And we would do the same exact thing. So where it currently stands, you know, we have a motion on the table for this current budget reflecting the discount or the final price Lori was able to settle with. And, you know, if they come back, just like if insurance comes back lower, or if there's anything else, we will then re-adopt that like we have in past years. Yeah, please, by all means. This is
Lori, I have some personal bills if maybe you could work on for me. Appreciate it. So I think this budget reflects this board's philosophy. I think it connects to the purpose of what this community tries to endeavor to instill in our educational system. I think everything that we see here in this budget connects to future employment, future gainful employment for the students of Berlin to have a successful future. So there's nothing philosophically whatsoever that I think I disagree with. I know at some point somebody might say, well, we'll cut it. You know, you always seem to make do. Surviving is not thriving. So I think, you know, as a board, we should, you know, encourage to have this met so that we can continue to thrive as a community. And additionally, maintenance of a really good program doesn't come cheap. If you shortchange it year after year, you will pay the piper eventually. And the piper usually wants more at that point, and you have a dissatisfied and disgruntled community base at that point, and you start to erode the confidence, so you start to erode the ability to recruit, you start to erode the staff morale across the school system. So this is an agenda that I don't think has, I mean, maybe there's some things in here you might feel like can nickel and dime, fine, but conceptually, based on what we're funding on a macro level, not a lot of frills. It's a maintenance of a really good educational system, and I really hope that the community supports it and that the Board of Finance supports it, and we can move forward as a moving force and a rising force in the state of Connecticut in terms of an educational system.
Thank you, Brian. I couldn't agree more. Anyone else want to share anything?
Just for clarification, when you were saying, Brian, that this was a one expense for the science of reading, so next year in the operational budget, we won't have to pay for this, correct?
There may be some text and books that will be needed, but not at this
same
level.
cost.
No, not unless the state says we're going to now move at grades 4 and 5. That'll be a whole nother piece.
Okay.
And that could be the case, Gina. I don't want to say that
Right.
it's
No, I just
not.
want
But
for
at this point,
clarification for.
this will meet the state's criteria with the number of $215,000 in this budget will get us up and running in K through 3.
But just to clarify real quick, so as we go through the budget process, and when Brian and Ashley and the administrators present their budget, like they have previously done prior to this meeting that we workshop, we go over all of the things that were in the previous year's budget that aren't in this proposed budget. We talk about the line items that are being reduced year to year, and there are cost savings and reductions, and that, so moving forward next year, if there's no other expenses associated with this, then we discuss that it's been reduced, and then the new budget is reflected. This is not like something where we're just saying, oh, we're gonna just keep adding this cost every year, year over year to pad our secret slush fund that we don't have. I'm joking, but you know, it's reflected just like all the other things that we remove or don't need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify case there was somebody out there that, you know, didn't pick that up or didn't understand it, so.
Yeah, and then if town
Acting
council
like a
does want to
regular
come
person.
forth throughout this budget season, say they'll fund this, then we as a board can just reset our number, re-adopt the new number. And that's fine too, but at this point in the juncture, we can't just assume that one thing is gonna happen and another isn't, because that would be at the expense of the children, and impact, you know, people and programs.
Right, you would think that once you implement a reading program, that each year they're not gonna tack on another, you know, $250,000. I mean, I would hope not.
The
but
way
you
this
just don't know.
whole thing came out, it was snuck into the implementer, then surprise, all these districts have to do this because it's now legislated, which really takes away from the local autonomy of school boards. So I would hope that there would be no other costs with
Surprises,
it. But just, you know, this one was really out of our hands, so, you know, I think that's a valid question. Any other questions or comments?
If I could just make one more comment. You know, what Brian said about staying competitive. When you look at that ranking of 26, you look at, I didn't disclose all the other towns. There's maybe one or two other towns that are DIRG D or C. All the rest of them are DIRG A and B. Totally different income level, totally different representation than in the top. So when you think about, I know it's only one, you know, statistics you can twist any you want, it's only one representation by Money Inc., but it does say something about not being in the DIRG, not having the money as other towns have, but doing a good job with that money to be competitive with those other schools. So I think that's what you're alluding to, Brian, by what you said. So I think it's important for the board to recognize that. And I'll send you the article with the update this week, and hopefully be able to get that out to the public in our snapshot also.
I think we have a school district that we can really be proud of. We've worked really hard as a board, like, you know, coming together with our goals and, you know, knowing the direction that our board wants to go in for the greater educational community of Berlin. And I think this budget is a representation of that. Anything else? Okay, so we can move to a vote, and then just after everyone at the table votes, I'll just have Vanessa vote separate, just because that's how we have to do it virtual. All right, so we had a motion by Peter, a second by Brian. We had our discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, did everyone at the table vote? Okay, it's just hard. Okay, and then Vanessa. Okay, so the budget moves by 9-0. So we have adopted a $56,403,365 operating budget for the 2025-2026 school year.
You could just add custodial contract to this because they ratified,
Yep.
just notified. us.
So our next item on our agenda is moving into executive session, inviting the Ashley and the superintendent for para-educator discussion and the custodial contract ratification. So we will move into that. We don't need a motion, right? No. So we're going to move into that, and then we will leave from we'll come out of executive session and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you for listening to the presentation, and thank you to the students and who presented.
Do you want to go into the small room so we can
Yeah,
just
let's go into the small room, and
Leave
then
our
we'll
stuff here if you want.
leave our
Okay.
stuff here.
Desserts are